G'day, Ben from Melbourne here. And are you ready for today? We have one of the VC's finest. One of the few VC members under the age of 50, not like the bored out of their brain retired VC members that have all the time on their hands to fill YouTube, ruminating on such fascinating things as what age did Paul McCartney introduce a pre-show nasal hair maintenance routine? Like me, today's guests, we have day jobs, so our videos are to the point, informational, hard-hitting videos. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit off track there. Where was I? A man with more hair on his head than all of the VC combined. A man who's not afraid of a fiddle or a mandolin. That's not a double entendre, by the way.
Well,
the number one Mike Ness fan. It's Americana Sam. Welcome, mate.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate all those very kind and very true words.
I always stick to the truth, mate.
Yes, you do.
So, if you haven't watched this before, basically this is a interviewing the vinyl community video, a bit of a quiz. Like all good quizzes, the points are meaningless. It's only for VC members to lord over each other in the comments, which I like that kind of competition. So you ready to get into it?
I am very ready for whatever is about to ensue. So yes.
Okay. Number one, justify your YouTube vinyl community existence. Why should we watch your channel, Sam, and show a record that supports this?
Well, I, as you can see by the moniker here, and that's not a Southern way to say moniker. I probably talk about music that's not, that Paul McCartney doesn't necessarily touch. I'm not going to mention Jimmy Page every other word. I'm, not praising Black Sabbath every other episode. I am an Americana guy, so I talk about lesser known artists that deserve love. Does it earn me money? It does not, but I get all sorts of different old people to watch my videos versus the other old people that watch everybody else's. And so the record that I'll show will be a quick plug, I guess. This is an album by a gentleman named Seth Walker, who is out of Asheville, North Carolina. I had the pleasure of interviewing him probably about two and a half weeks ago. I've posted him on my community page if you subscribe and check that out. About a 22-minute interview. We talked about this record that came out a couple of weeks ago. He's kind of steeped in the blues, some folk, but really, is really a blues kind of picker guy, but just a genuinely nice guy, very, very generous with his time. So if you want recent content on my channel, Seth Walker and my interview with him. So I hope that's justifiable for you.
And I just say, after 2 interviews with Canadians, that was really refreshing because of their answers were along the lines of, I'm not sure why anybody would want to watch my channel.
Yeah, Canadians need a little lemon juice in the scratch. Yeah. I love you, Canadians.
And speaking of, you were on point there with newer stuff. I personally want to thank you for getting me onto Chime School. I just got the record which came out last year, the one with Paisley in the title. It's fantastic.
The boy who sold the Paisley Hotel.
That's the one. Yeah. If you like that, that jangly bird style harmonies, but we'll get into that later on. I reckon that's a hard pass for question number one. I'm happy with that. You get 1 point. Okay. Next question. Show a record that you know I like.
Well, we're going to stick to the jingle jangle because I believe you just saw these fellas. And that is the Lemon Twigs, New York's own, the Dario brothers. Again, jingly jangly guys in their mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've commented several times because you would think that I'm hired by these guys to be in their marketing team, but no, they just turn a blind eye, but I still promote their stuff.
Yeah, I saw them year before last at the Harvest Festival in Adelaide, and I'd had their previous album to that, and really liked it, but sort of wasn't sure what to expect live. And because that record is probably more seeped in like 70s FM kind of sounds, the
Mm-hmm.
previous one.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they come out and they just kicked out these power pop tunes and just blew me away. Like, and they were tight, and the live harmonies,
Yeah.
and they were incredible live band. Yeah, you are acing this, Sam. Two for two so far. Now this one could bring it all undone. How do you tune a banjo?
How do I tune a banjo with the tuning pegs?
Just in mind, you are Americana, Sam, and banjos are pretty heavy in the Americana sound sometimes.
It is tuned to open G tuning.
I'm afraid I can't award you that one. Everybody knows you tune a banjo with wire cutters. Just snip, snip on them strings, and they sound perfect.
Right. That's what I usually do when I can't get it in open G.
You can imagine how much Glenn Calloway enjoyed that joke right now too.
He's holding the sides. Yeah.
He's probably like that at the thing.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, how do you rate Kermit's banjo playing on the Rainbow Connection?
He's very good for a lefty.
Nice. Well, you could nearly get a half point just for that. That was good observation. I don't reckon many people pick him up as a lefty. All right, I'm going to put a question mark next to that one because I was impressed with that Kermit comeback.
Well, thank you.
Okay, what are we up to? Number 4. Now, I want you to complete these band names, and a fast game is a good game, so keep it snappy. So I'll say the first part, and then you have to say the next part.
Okay.
You with me?
I think so.
I think you'll realize there's a pattern pretty quickly. The Leuven.
Brothers.
The Walker.
Brothers.
The Everly.
Brothers.
The Righteous.
Brothers.
The Allman.
Brothers.
The Isley.
Brothers.
The Flying Burrito.
Brothers.
The Avett.
Brothers.
The Stanley.
Brothers.
The Neville.
Brothers.
The Statler.
Brothers.
The Chemical.
Brothers.
The Finn.
Brothers.
The Blues.
Brothers.
The Sex.
Pistols.
Well done. Didn't slip up.
No bullocks here.
You are on.
It's early for you. I know your brain is still trying to wake up with the coffee.
Yeah, that bite to eat you had really helped.
Yes, it did. I didn't tell you what it was, but
it's brain food, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to number 5. Why don't you like hip hop, or why do you dig hip hop?
I actually have done a video with Brian Massey from Massey's Main Entertainment up there in the northern part of the lower 48 here in the U.S., where we talked about License to Ill by the Beastie Brothers, which was Beastie Brothers, the Beastie Boys.
I've ruined your mind.
You ruined it, yeah.
Question.
I do enjoy certain hip hop. I've gotten more into like that 80s kind of like you call it like playground rap, where you have like early Roots and things like that. And I actually do enjoy it. It's not something that I reach for in the the record bins. And I'm for sure not a fan of a former lover of Kim Kardashian, but I do enjoy some rap. So it's not one of those things that I'm going to completely poo-poo. Like again, a lot of the Beatle lovers out there.
Correct answer.
No, well,
I love hip hop. This is probably the point where everybody fast forwards through that bit of the video.
And I'm getting unsubscribed right now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, let's move on before we lose more viewers who would prefer us to talk about dinosaurs.
Right.
Tell a story of the most unusual or funny thing that has happened at a gig that you've attended, or even one that you've played.
This was the first question I knew that I had it right away, because I've talked about it before, and it still kind of infuriates me to this day. My dad is a big Gordon Lightfoot fan, and my dad, I got to see him twice. He was my first concert, and I got to see him again about 10 years later. I think it was his last year of touring before he passed away. And I got it from my dad as a gift for Father's Day. And we were about 3 rows from the front, a venue that holds about 2,500 people or so. And there were 2 couples sitting behind us that were part of a group. I believe the husbands were both Canadian. So obviously, Gordo is God up there in Canada. And so I was expecting them to be diehards. Plus they were, 4th row. So they put down the money like I did. Well, they, came in pretty much hammered from the get-go, like from the opener onward. And so their voices got louder throughout the evening. They talked the entire night. And, they were complaining because Gordo was 83, 84, and his voice wasn't the same, but they weren't respecting him at all, or us patrons. And at the very end, during the encore, one guy was half drunk, and he said, he's like, I wonder what the encore is going to be. And then he said, well, I know the song he hasn't played, and that's Time in a Bottle. He's going to have to do Time in a Bottle, which was not a Gordon Lightfoot song, but rather a Jim Croce song that Gordon never covered, to my understanding.
Sorry, that was the inside baseball for me, because I do know of Gordon Lightfoot, but I don't know a lot about him. I didn't realize until he passed away how big he was in the Northern Hemisphere. Sorry to interrupt there.
Well, the whole, the moral of the story is that had I known that they, were waiting for Time in a Bottle, I would have just turned around and told them, hey, Croce died back in the 70s. This isn't happening tonight. So it was a very irritating moment. But again, I'm glad I got to see Gordon, but there were some wankers behind us, to use the Queen's English.
Yeah, used it well as well. I love Mazzy and love Vinyl Richie. But a song isn't a wanker. They say this is the wanker on this album. It's like an annoying person's a wanker.
Right.
I had that was very similar to when I saw Neil Young and Crazy Horse years ago. And I'd seen him do the Greendale tour, and I saw him do, which was like a Neil Young tour. So he had more of his country band. And then this last show I saw was Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And that's the problem with these big shows, is you get an element of people who are really into Neil Young and go deep, and then you get the people who know Harvest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's a Crazy Horse show, so we don't play any of that stuff.
No.
And so he's come out, and the first thing he's done is stick his guitar into the amp and just made it feedback. And these people behind me are just like, play a song. And then
yeah, no, that's not happening.
They realize about 10 songs in that he's not going to play Heart of Gold, and they leave. And it was one of the best concerts. It was out of the 3 times I saw him. It was
very cool.
Best. Yeah. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about you. Okay, what are we up to? Number 7. Geez, we're flying through. Show your favorite music-related fruit or vegetable that's not a banana.
This one was a little bit more difficult, but I think it was Brian who was talking about the cliches, the apple, and that kind of thing. Well, I'm gonna go with a keep it UK centered here, though I know you're down under. Let's go with some beans with the Who.
Nice.
And there's Roger looking very much disgusted by being in a bath full of Heinz baked beans, but also enjoyable here in the South of, below the Mason-Dixon line on a 4th of July picnic. So baked beans will be my vegetable there.
I had baked beans yesterday morning with my breakfast. I love some baked beans on toast with fried tomatoes. Great answer. Great answer. Love that. All right, this is the controversial one, especially between you and me.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing about this question is it's made me end up talking more about this guy than I ever planned to on my channel. So here it goes.
Yeah.
Apologize for liking Van Morrison, or celebrate with me your dislike for Van Morrison.
Well, I'm excited for the day when somebody does celebrate with you. But those that know me know I am a fan of Van, especially Ben. Ben really loves it when I talk about him, and he just tells me how much he loves them, and that's about it. No, and the cliche thing, like, the last 2 interviews you've had is, I obviously was not a fan of Van around 2020. And really, I want him to keep his mouth shut with that. I'm all for politics and music. I'm all for it, no matter what side you're on. It's a right, but some of the things he was saying to, throw health to the wind during the pandemic was not tasteful to me. So I would apologize as a Van fan for that. But I do love him. I've got, I think I've got all but one of his albums in some format.
Wow.
A lot of times from thrift stores, but take that as you will. But I'm a big fan. My mom is a big fan. She's the one who got me into his deep cuts, and yeah.
Well, I think I might have to, or as much as I hate to do this, I might have to award you a point because you did apologize in a way, which, and I'm 100% with you with his views. It's just like everyone has a right to say stuff, but if you're going to say stuff, at least be factual. And unlike Brian, Embryonic Robot, who tried to completely reframe the question, you answered it.
But you are in favor of Van Morrison's choice of hat wear, being a hat man.
I don't like anything about Van Morrison.
Okay. It makes you glad that he's not from Australia and that he's
I can't condone his hats, his anything.
His tight pants at the last waltz.
Yeah, what's going on there? All right. Now, this is not just from me, but on behalf of most of the vinyl community, this question, because a lot of us are afflicted with perfectly bald heads. And we would just like to know, what is your number one tip to achieve luscious, healthy, and thick-looking hair?
I would say not to wear hats, but I come across that naturally because I have a larger head, and therefore I can't just walk into a hat shop and find, the hats here. I don't know how they label them down there, but there's this one size fits all myth that goes around where a hat's supposed to fit all. It's very discriminatory, really, because it does not fit all heads. Therefore, I was forced out of hats at a very early age, which have therefore kept my hair getting the vitamin D that it so needs. So that's my try to if you're not married, try to find somebody with a large head so that maybe your child could have a large head and be, averted from hats is my one piece of advice.
There were 2 things I liked about that response.
Okay.
There was like getting the baldies on side by saying, look, I have problems too.
I do.
Got a large head. And the other thing I like about it is for the very same reasons. My younger brother's nickname is Head.
Interesting.
Yes, because he's got quite the bounce on him.
Well, a good man, I'm sure.
He goes all right. All right, we're up to number 10.
Wow.
What is the worst record, and you know it, that you own? Why do you have it? And of course, on this channel, we don't like sob stories of, on my grandmother's deathbed, she said, just play this Al Jolson record one more time before I go. It's yours. We don't want that shit. We want a funny or whatever story.
Right. Screw the dead, as they say. They don't say
They
that.
do say that.
They don't say that, but well, this kind of goes back to a previous question. I have it on CD, so I hope this does not deduct points. But look at that name there.
Oh, wow.
That's Van Morrison, and
You're hurting my eyeballs right now.
I know this could be the thumbnail. This is from 2022, and let me just read off some of the titles here. Fodder for the Masses, Money from America, Fear and Self-Loathing in Las Vegas. Sometimes it's just blah, blah, blah. This is the crotchety old man album 2 years after certain events. And I listened to it once. I have it because I'm a completist. But it is collecting dust and shall remain collecting dust on my shelf. So
2 years after, he was still banging on.
He was, and I think Clapton is on here, at least playing backup guitar. His good buddy.
Yeah, another privileged asshole who complains about it. All right, this one I'm interested in because this was a newer question. Because if I stuffed up and gave you two of the same questions,
yeah,
just letting everyone behind the curtain there are 6 questions that Sam was allowed to prepare himself for. That's why he just can magically pull records out straight away when I answer.
I don't just sleep with these like on my couch. Yeah.
Okay, what is the most unusual item that has been included with a record you own? It can be a legit part of the packaging or something the previous owner left in there.
Well, this is one. It's funny. I couldn't locate the actual item, but I'm keeping. So this has become me bashing Van Morrison apparently, because it's going to be
going so well for me.
It's going to be a Van Morrison related thing. So he had an album called Latest Record Project, which I think was actually his actual COVID album. The music was fair. It was fine. It was a double record. But if you pre-ordered on his site, you were supposed to get this little insert, like they do now. They don't sign packages anymore. They give you the insert of the signature. And I got the signature of, supposedly it was Van Morrison. I paid like an extra $3. It wasn't much more. And then there was this huge controversy that it was a stamp, that it was an auto pen. And then quickly thereafter, they were posting pictures on his socials of him with like this stack of papers signing away with his reading glasses on. So I have it. I've looked at other images of this signature online. They all look very, very, very similar, like right down to where the pen was lifted. And so I think I might have paid $3 for a photocopy, but it was unusual because it was actually in the music news.
Yeah. That around the same time there was a similar thing, I think, with a Bob Dylan.
It was about
set as well.
It was about a year before. Dylan had a book called The History of Modern Sound, I think, and that was actually discovered to be like an auto pen. I have the book, not the signed one, because it was like an extra $50 or $60, and I said, I'm not going to do that. But yes, so these old guys and their arthritis.
Sticking it into what fans they've got left too.
Yeah.
All right, we're up to the penultimate question. You got to now do in your best vinyl Richie voice. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I was almost an Obama. Like, hello, everybody. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, would you like a second take? Or are you happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
All right.
Sorry, Richie.
Yeah, well, yeah. After Fitz, who even did like the hands and that.
Yeah, he went on a monologue.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. That's
No.
for sure. Okay, we're up to the last question, which is also a bonus question. And I like these because if it's an education for me to know what people actually know about this country I live in. Because one thing since I've been in the VC is I was surprised that a lot of people know of Australia, but they don't know a lot about Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just more out of my interest than anything.
Okay.
So, here we go. In what Australian city would you find the suburb of Virginia?
I'm going to go with Victoria. No, not Victoria's not a city. Adelaide.
You got it!
Oh, did I? Did I really?
You got it! Yeah, Adelaide, the capital of South Australia. It's on the outskirts of Adelaide.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I think that's the first and last time that will happen with these questions.
It's funny. I have a story. I have an Adelaide story. The one cruise that I ever went on, in like their acoustic lounge music room, there was a singer from Adelaide. His name was Lucas Day, and he would always talk about, he'd be like, well, Adelaide was the only Australian town that wasn't colonized by convicts. So he said that's why we don't have an Australian accent. And of course, he's talking the whole time, and he sounds like Crocodile Dundee. To me and my buddy were like, no Australian accent, and but then he would start playing Ed Sheeran songs, and we kind of be like, but
yeah, sorry about that as an Australian.
Yeah, he was all right, but yeah.
Yeah, well, he's kind of right, because I worked with a woman from South Australia, and her husband's name was Grant, and I used to like saying, "How's Grant going?" And she'd always correct me. Say, "Yes, Grant's very good, thank you."
Not Grant.
Yeah. So it got more and more Grant the more I go. I'm a very annoying person to work with, but anyway.
Oh, love it.
You have absolutely aced it. Question 3 was the one where I was thinking about giving you a half point because if you noticed that Kermit was a lefty. And so you didn't even need that half point because you have got 12 out of 13, beating the 2 previous 11 out of 13s. So you are the champ. You're on top.
I will
lord it over the VC, mate.
This is when you cancel the series and just leave me on top.
It's like last year with my Australian rules football side. After the first round, we won one game and we're on top of the ladder. And I just took a photo of that, and that's what got me through the rest of the shit season.
Yeah. Well, take a photo of this. I'll take a photo of this.
Yeah.
Taking me through dark days at work.
All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for being part of that. So you are heavyweight world champion as the results stand at the moment. And I will leave a link to Sam's awesome Americana Sam channel below. Check him out. Sub him twice if you can. Open up another YouTube channel so you can sub multiple times. Really, really good stuff. Good blend of the old and the new. And I for one have learned a lot because I'm one who has an interest in those sounds, but don't know a lot about it. And Sam has not done me wrong with, as I said, chime school recommendations, We both love the Lemon Twigs, good stuff like that. Anything with a jangly guitar sound, I'm on board. So thanks again, Sam, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Thanks, Ben.